Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to maxworldlive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 4 minutes after the hour on this 27th day of May in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Max World Live, starring Tom Coates
yes.
And Ryan Northfield with our special guest, legislator and soon-to-be Congressman Brad Zaun. I'm your voice, Mac. Is that...
No, you don't use that because then they'll get you and Frank's confused. Yes.
So I'm like Ed McMahon.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I think you're
I'll sell
more
you
like
Alpo dog food.
I referred to you as a legend last week when I subbed in and sat in the big seat, Mac.
I told you not to drink before you host these shows. Now you got to stop that. Our special guest today is Brad Zaun, who is running for Congress in what district?
For the 3rd Congressional District.
3rd Congressional District. And tonight is the big Channel 8 debate. Is it just Channel 8?
Channel 8, and I think they communicated to us that there might be a station in Omaha that picks it up as well. Plus, you could get it online and watch it live.
Yeah, because they've got a Hearst station in Omaha.
Yeah, I think that's what they said.
All right, and so this is the pre-debate debate. And I want you to be like Monty Shaw, and I want you to be rude and incorrigible and really attack him, okay? You know, why are you running naked around Dunkin' Donuts at 3 in the morning? And Brad would say, I didn't do that. And Monty would say, but I know you did.
Yeah.
Show me proof. I don't need proof.
I do like Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, I do too. So anyway, we're here with Brad, and the debate is 6:30 to 8 tonight on Channel 8, and it's you, Monty Shaw,
Robert Kramer, Joe Grandinette, David Young. Am I forgetting somebody?
That's 5.
You mentioned Matt Schultz?
And Matt Schultz.
Matt Schultz.
Yes, and that was not any... I don't
No,
want your
well, you weren't
listeners to
ranking.
think
You were
I'm-
just naming.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's
there's
right.
a lot of us. That's for
That's
sure.
right. And this is the seat that Tom Latham has stepped down. Have you talked to Tom?
Yes, I have. Several times.
What you're able to share, what advice does he give you?
I've actually talked to him about issue stuff. I really haven't asked him for advice in regards to once I get out to D.C. Elections. I've done this before, and I've learned some hard lessons in the past. But he's of course staying out of this, let the process happen.
But he'll probably get in after the primaries.
I would
week.
assume he will. I know that he was very supportive when I ran in 2010.
Good. All right. And Tom, of course, you have your usual list of topics you want to talk, so I'll turn it over to you.
And your race, I think we could start on there before. 4 years ago, you ran for the House seat. At that point, we had 5 congressional districts. Now it's been consolidated to 4. If you had won and beaten Boswell, and at one point you were in the lead until the dirty campaign ads came out that Boswell was just disgusting to sit there and let the outsiders run his campaign that way. Supposedly a Christian man, and to allow the scurrilous ads that went forward. And at that point, and we've talked about this, you didn't answer them quickly enough. They buried you, and by the time you were ready to respond late, the press shut you out. In fact, the one person involved tried to come forward to the Register a couple weeks out, and they refused to allow her to tell her side of the story. But at that point, if you had won, and part of the reason I think money was being withheld from your campaign was they realized that at some point the next 2 years, then you would have to go up against Latham. And that was an unappealing prospect, I think, to a lot of them. They felt that Boswell could be beaten to have a young up-and-coming Republican congressman running against Latham for that same seat would have been an uncomfortable situation. So I always felt that that had something to do with the lack of money that came to your campaign. Would you agree with, to some degree, that?
Well, I mean, you move on from things like that, and certainly I have had questions about that. But like I said, I move on from it. This campaign's a lot different. There is an incumbency protection plan in Washington, D.C. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. They kind of like to keep their own in there.
Right.
And a lot of the groups that get involved in these campaigns make sure that that happens. Even if the candidate that that is being defended disagrees with them. That happened to me time and time again. This is different this time.
But this is because Latham, and besides that, Latham we know is a smoking buddy of Boehner's. I mean, so he is hooked into the powers that be in the House right now, isn't he?
Well, I think he has a good, close relationship with Congressman Boehner. But, I learned some lessons last time. You kind of touched on a few things. One thing I will tell you, this is a different district. Completely different. It is Republican leaning district. There's no incumbent involved, so there's going to be a lot of money that's going to be spent on this. I will get, if I'm fortunate enough to be the nominee, I will get support from the Republican Party. But bottom line for me is, if there is lies and distortions of where I'm at on issues, I will be responding this time. Everybody tells you that they don't like negative ads. And what I did is I tried to treat him with the utmost respect, because he's a war veteran and someone that was a little bit older than I was. But what happens is those negative ads start working if they're just repeated time and time and time again. So I ran a positive campaign last time and thought I'd be rewarded in the end by only talking about myself. Really did not attack Leonard Boswell one way or the other.
Yes.
And so this time I am going to respond.
Yeah.
And I feel good about my chances to be successful in the fall, as well as here in a week.
All right, let me ask you this, Brad. I've known you for some years. I've watched your campaigns with interest. It looks like you have not been as successful as some of your opponents in the primary at raising money. Now, I've also known you to be a strong-willed person of principle. You've stood up against some of the special interests that particularly donate large sums of money to Republicans in this state. Is that the case again this time? Are some of the people reluctant to want to see you rise on top because they feel like you perhaps cannot be as controlled and manipulated as some of the other candidates might be?
Well, first of all, I've taken thousands of votes. When you take votes, you're going to upset some people. I would have to say this. There is good people running this race, but I've been battle tested, and I stand up for what's right. And sometimes when you stand up for what's right, you're obviously going to alienate some potential people that would support you in a campaign. And I'm not going to change that. I do, hopefully I'll be successful next Tuesday. If I do, I need everybody's help. But this is what happens in politics. I mean,
but you've been stronger than
candidate.
most. Now, I want to give you a kudo at this point, because at one point when we were opposing the expansion of casinos in this state, when you were the mayor of Urbandale, you were the only elected metropolitan official that would step up publicly in front of the TV cameras and oppose the expansion of gambling in this state and in this metropolitan area. And it developed a lot of respect for you, but there is fallout from that. And some of the deep pockets that normally would fund a Republican like yourself come from some of those casino interests, and I'm sure you have been denied access to some of that money because of your strong stand on that. And again, I congratulate you. You have my respect for that, but there is a consequence to be paid.
And you know what? Bring it on, because I am going to continue to do and act the way I have been acting in the past. Beauty with me is I tell it the way it is. You don't have to guess where I'm at on issues. And if I give you my word I'm going to do something, I do that. I always listen to both sides of the story. But I'm not going to change. And really, the system is broken. And I think we need to send more independent thinking people that are not making decisions based on re-election, because that's the problem in Washington, D.C. right now.
Crony capitalism, many of us complain about the crony capitalism or crony socialism that's going on, but nowhere is it on worse display than here in the state of Iowa when you've got 20 casinos that are linked up with the state and local governments to the point that the citizenry of a predatory industry like casinos are not no longer an issue for the government. It's a matter of the racing and gaming, I said years ago, went from a regulatory body that was to protect the citizens from a predatory industry to a casino betterment league. When Vilsack came in and took campaign money from the casinos to pay off his campaign debt, and he gutted Brad Payton and 2 others off the Racing and Gaming Commission, and he put people on there that were no longer their primary objective, and to some degree it still is, the betterment of the casinos. What's in the casino's best interest? And so that kind of crony capitalism, especially when you're talking about an industry as inherently predatory as the casinos, is the worst example of that. And I applaud you for standing up to that.
Well, and thank you for saying that. But let's talk about fundraising, okay? First of all, I take my responsibility as being a state senator very seriously. And I was at the Capitol working for the constituents that I had. The other thing about it is I have not looked at the last reports. I need to raise a lot of money if I'm successful through the primary for the general. But with that said, I'm a grassroots guy. It's always the way I've handled myself. I make at least 200 phone calls a day to people. I call undecideds that have been identified. I am out on the road doing campaigning like crazy. But I looked at all the disclosures from some of the opponents, most of the opponents that I have. There is tons of PAC money that's in those campaigns. Not to mention, I looked at what I have people that are donating $5 or $10 or $25, and I put my disclosure up against any of my opponents, because most all the ones that are raising a lot of money or contributing their own personal wealth to it, which I don't have a problem with, their donations were $250 to $500 above, and a lot of max donors. And I have some max donors that believe in me as well. But I believe that certainly the primary process, you don't have to have enough money. If you just look at what happened to me in 2010, when I ran against Jim Gibbons, I mean, he raised like 4 times as much as I did. But I'm going to continue the game plan that has worked for me in the past, and that's what we've been doing this cycle.
Brad Zaun is our guest today, 3rd District Congressman. That's the job he wants. You'll get an opportunity to decide between him and 5 other candidates a week from today on the 3rd day of June. That's the primary, and then the main date is November. Do you know? I don't know.
Oh, whatever
November.
The first Tuesday of
First
November.
Tuesday in November.
Yeah. And that'll be, that's coming up, of course, this November. He will face either Stacey Apple or...
No, I think it's only Stacey Apple.
No, Stacey Apple is the only nominee for the Democratic Party.
Which is a
That's
good and a
kinda
bad
weird,
thing.
isn't
Well,
it?
but it's not, and she doesn't have to fight or spend her money, but at the same time, there's nobody talking about her at this point. And so the good thing is when you've got a public debate between these guys, they're getting the press at this point, so there's an upside to this as well.
Okay, now, why do I smell something fishy there, that no one else stepped up to run against Stacey Apple?
Well, I think, from what I've heard, the little talk on the street that I've heard, is she put her name out there to run against Tom Latham.
Yes.
And then, of course, garnished all the endorsements. And for them, those groups that endorsed her, to unendorse her would not be right. And so
She was a sacrificial lamb to begin with, Matt.
I know her. I served with her for 4 years. I actually have had a little bit of exposure to some of her family because my son debates her 2 sons, which are nice kids. I don't have any problem with her being a mother or anything like that. But I will tell you, I've debated her one-on-one in the Senate floor on a lot of really bad legislation. And I think that, we'll see what happens, but I think that she's going to be someone that is, whoever gets the nomination from the Republican Party should be able to defeat her in the fall.
She was our senator, Mac, out there. I live in Norwalk, and she was our senator, and she proved herself in those 4 years to be just too far left for the area, and they booted her out.
All right, Brad Zaun is back with Tom Coates, myself, and Ryan. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Right here on 99.3 KTIA, Iowa.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
It's 21 minutes after the hour on this, the 27th day of May in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Brad Zaun. He wants your vote. He doesn't want it for free. He wants to earn it. And he's here today to help us understand why his vote is something you should be proud of. Now, you can also see more of Brad and his 5 contenders tonight, 6:30 to 8 on Channel 8. Also be streaming live on the web. So you can check that out and see what you think of him and his... Did we count right 5 opponents?
That's correct.
All right. Let me ask you something. You said a minute ago that once you give an endorsement, you can't get it back. Talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. What does an endorsement mean?
Well, endorsement means that you are publicly telling people that you support an individual for an elected office. I mean, that's an election aspect, but there's endorsements of products and that kind of stuff as well. But it basically means you could have a group or you could have an individual that says publicly, I'm supporting Brad Zaun or Mac McCoy or Tom Coates.
All right, so if you get the endorsement of the NRA, the
Right.
National Rifle Association, do you make an assumption that anybody who's a member of the NRA is now going to vote for you?
No, you
Never.
do not. Never,
Okay.
never make that assumption. You know, I'm not into endorsements. I think if you're someone that's not well known, that they do help you a little bit with some credibility. But you see, I have not even rolled out and won't roll out a list of endorsements. There is a couple people that are very vocal that want to do that. I haven't 100% decided that yet. But to me, you got to look at the candidate. Doesn't matter who's supporting you. You got to look at the candidate, see if they align with your issues, where you're at, and what kind of a person that is.
The Senate race seems to have a lot more endorsements than the House side, and some of those are somewhat dubious, I think.
And, there's some of my competitors do have some endorsements, some former Congress people, as well as some movers and shakers, as well as there's some groups that are involved. But the NRA in particular is not going to make an endorsement in this. The Farm Bureau is not going to make an endorsement in this race.
Will they after the primaries?
Yes, they will. Okay. I guarantee you they will.
Then they will endorse.
Yes.
Now, does those in general, not specific to your campaign, but in general, once you get past the primaries, do those endorsements also come with some contributions?
Some do, some don't.
Okay.
I do know that I've been endorsed in the past by the NRA and a whole group of people, different organizations that are out there. But some do and some don't. I've been very reluctant to do any surveys because I say I've taken thousands of votes. You should know where I'm at. I can understand if you're someone new that's never been elected before or never has taken votes, which no one in this race has taken votes like I have, that they want to know where you're at on the issues.
All right. Can we, for a moment, talk about an unrelated contest?
Sure.
Joni Ernst and Mark Jacobs.
Okay.
Seems to be a little dirty even before we get to the primaries. And that seems to be that Joni Ernst puts out a message and then Mark Jacobs grabs it and turns it into something else. Did it with the pig thing, and now doing it with the gun thing.
Well, and in the latest one, I got a flyer today claiming that she was a supporter of Obamacare. That's the latest flyer that's just out on the doorsteps today.
All right. When you as a candidate see that type of politicking, are you jealous or are you thankful you're not in it?
I'm thankful that that's not happening yet.
Okay.
Because really it doesn't bother me that much, but it certainly has an effect on my wife and my kids and my loved ones.
Yeah.
But I think it's unfortunate. Listen, I know both those people. I sit with Joni Ernst sits right behind me. To say that she was a supporter of Obamacare is not true, and I'm not here to defend her campaign right now. And it's unfortunate. To me, when someone goes on the attack, that means their polling numbers are way down, and it's kind of a desperate
It looks desperate to me, and I don't think Jacobs will help himself by that. I've said that. I think he's going to hurt himself. He may dirty her up a little bit in the meantime, which would only help Sam and Matt. But I don't think he will help himself, and it looks desperate to me.
And by Jacobs going after Ernst, is he trying to make me the non-informed voter who just watches TV to think those are the only two candidates I have to choose from?
I don't know what his mission is. You'd have to ask that campaign.
Well, we had him in your seat once. We'll never get him again. But
we will if he gets the primary.
Oh, I doubt it, Mac. You think he's ever going to come on this show again?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will see. I don't think we'll have to worry about that because he's not going to get the nomination.
Well, I don't know about that.
You mentioned Joni. You and she were both in the news recently with a carry issue coming into the Capitol.
And when you say carry, you mean carrying guns?
Yes, I'm talking about concealed weapons.
When you say carry, I think of either Jim or the idiot.
All right.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton's replacement.
I've experienced some of the. It's interesting the way that they have the security. And Mac, have you been in the Capitol? Have you seen the kind of security they have up the Capitol?
I always just walk in and I know them all, and they say, "Hey, Matt, come on in."
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, it's somewhat intensive, almost like an airport security on the public entrance. But there are other entrances and the side entrances. I often walk out just the side entrance. There's nobody there. I walk out the doors, and all you would have to do, Brad, is have a Confederate come through security, wait for you at one of the side doors, open the door, you walk right in, there's nobody around, and you could have your way. That's why I said initially this thing is wrong, because you're right, Joni's right to carry in there. But then there's other aspects. The media, I thought, unfairly beats you up, only to find out that you weren't outside the boundaries of the law. Tell us about your experience on that.
Well, here's what happened is I was with the Des Moines Register editorial board, and you got to remember you're sitting in there where there's 6 different people firing questions at you. We started out with, where are you at on the Second Amendment, which I explained where I was. Then the question was, do you have a permit to carry? And I said, yes, I do. I went through the class. I've been to shooting ranges, and I do have a carry. Then the follow-up question was, have you ever carried into the Capitol? And there was some confusion there. I would have to tell you that I probably should have said it's none of your darn business. But I didn't do that because I'm just an honest
You're too candid a person, though.
Okay,
you're not guarded enough, which may be your fault and an asset all at the same time.
So what I did is there was some conversations. If you look at the Des Moines Register, you could actually watch this interview. There were some conversations about one person thought that you could, another person thought you could not. Well, what happened is the immediate reaction from the Secretary of State was, no, he can't, or Secretary of the Senate, excuse me, you cannot carry. Well, then we went back to the rules because they did change the security policies after 9/11 in the Capitol and put the metal detectors and everything in. So what I did is I knew at the time that there was an exception, but I guess I've never read it before. I just assumed that. And so that's where the controversy started. I've had several people ask me, were you pandering to the Second Amendment people? No, that's not true. They asked the question. I have a concealed carry permit. I carry a firearm at times. And the reason why I do that is a big eye-opening experience is what happened in Arizona.
Yeah.
And then, of course, let's talk about the security. I think it's a great idea to review the security. The people that are at the metal detectors and the security at the Capitol are awesome people. I really think they do a very good job. But the law-abiding people go through those metal detectors, and then you can just open up a door. And I've seen teams come through those doors before. And so, some days because of I'm a public servant, I'm in the public eye, I feel threatened, and I have gotten threats, multiple threats that I turn over to the State Patrol. I was a little upset with the governor because he said, we don't have a security problem here in the Capitol, and I always feel safe. Well, duh. He has got a state patrolman that's right next to him at all times.
Right.
And the one thing I will tell you is if someone crazy comes out, I'm a father of 5, and I have a wife at home, and I will defend myself, and I do it by law.
Well, I appreciate that. Here's one of the gripes that I had. After the Register came out and acknowledged that you were within the law. Now, they to their credit, they did acknowledge, in essence, their error. I saw day after day after day after there that they had letters to the editor of readers of the paper that were still coming after you, claiming that you had violated the law. Now, how is that they would allow those letters to the editor to beat you up after they acknowledged that they were wrong? Now, I don't understand that. Can you explain that to me?
Well, I don't understand either. I don't get the Des Moines Register. I think they're obviously a very left-leaning organization. And really, I don't read that stuff. I don't want to know about that stuff.
Had you heard that that's what they'd done?
I heard, yes. I heard that there about every day for about a week there was letters in there. But, for the general public's reaction was, Brad, you have a right to do that. You're in the public eye, and you have the right to defend yourself. And that's the way I have voted in the Iowa Senate.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. At least we kind of cleared that up, Mac.
Yeah, I just don't Bradshaw used to say, never assume malice when incompetence will suffice. So there's either malice towards you with the editorial staff, or they're just incompetent over there to allow those letters to be written over and over.
Oh, I agree. Why do you think that they have endorsed, they've obviously beat up on Matt Schultz. They have in the past and even currently beat you up. Now they endorse Monty Shaw. How do you see the race, and why did they endorse Monty Shaw?
You'd have to ask them that. I didn't read that editorial. Just ask Congressman Reese, who I ran against last time, who was endorsed in 2010. I just don't think they have a lot of influence. In fact, sometimes I think people would do the opposite.
The Republicans, I think, certainly would. How do you see the race? Register aside, how do you see the race at this point? You're on the eve almost of the primary election. How do you see it?
Well, I feel good about my chances. There's been some, one independent poll that was released, I think, last week, which showed me with a pretty significant lead. But it's a poll. I don't get into polls. Obviously, the ultimate poll is on June 3rd. I feel good about my chances based on some of the internal polling we've done. But most importantly, I talk to hundreds of people every day, and I feel good about my chances to be successful. Obviously, the big question is, are you going to get to 35% or not?
That was you anticipate my follow-up. Okay.
And I would, I am going to try very, very hard to make sure that it doesn't go to convention. If it does go to convention, I feel good about my chances as well.
Are you, some of them I've heard in the Senate race, we're doing some lobbying well ahead of time with the people that would be sitting in on that convention. Have you or your opponents, to your knowledge, done any lobbying in anticipation of going to convention?
I don't know what my opponents have done because I don't keep track of that, but I will tell you I made over 450 calls, personal calls to every delegate, probably within 1 month after they became a delegate.
Okay.
And of course, if I don't get through the primary, we've got a convention strategy as well.
So you like your chances even if it does go to convention then?
I do believe that I would have a good case to be able to go to convention and be successful.
Brad Zaun is our guest today. He wants your vote for the 3rd Congressional District, the one that Tom Latham used to hold. He's got several opponents, and once we get past primary, which was a week from today, then we will head, hopefully, into the general election coming up in November. But as Tom and Brad just discussed, it might go to convention. What does that mean? And what's the process at a convention? And later on, I just want to ask Brad the simplest question of all. Why are you running? That's coming up live here on a Tuesday. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. Right here on 99.3 KTIA, and we are powered by webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
22 minutes before the top of the hour on this Tuesday, the 27th day of May in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Tom Coates in the house, produced by Ryan Northfield. I'm Mac, and our special guest is Brad Zaun, and Brad wants to be your congressman in the 3rd Congressional District. He's got several opponents. You might not know much about Brad or the other opponents. Well, you can learn more not only by listening to this program, but tonight live on Channel 8 from 6:30 to 8, there will be a 90-minute debate. And that'll be a good chance for all the candidates to give you an idea about what they stand for. I got an odd question for you. Who do you most want to be like in this world? Who do you really admire?
Well, I assume you're talking about modern day.
Well, not necessarily.
You know, obviously, Jesus Christ is someone we probably would all agree around this table would be number one.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, who do I admire? I will have to tell you, I really have grown to admire my wife. She is an incredible person, best friend. I am just totally blessed to have her in my life.
Yeah, you were saying that earlier, how awesome she was.
She is incredible.
Yeah?
I love her so much. She's my rock. She is my foundation, and just been so supportive of everything I've done. And I tell you, I just cannot. She is number one. She's incredible, and I can't even put into words.
Yeah.
How great she is.
Well, when I asked Tom the question about who he admires the most and most wants to be like, he says your wife too. So she must be a heck of a woman. I don't know if I've ever met her, but
She's
probably
got
some press
you probably
stuff.
have met her, but she's got such strong faith, and gosh, she's the best mother, best husband, best. She's just the best in everything she does. And
You
so
married up.
I definitely married up.
We're going to have to get in some shots on our wives, or that raises the bar to a level where we
My
don't.
wife's going to watch this, and she's going to say, well,
DJ.
I waited.
Yes.
Waited for what? I waited to have you tell me or say something about me. So
We all married up. I think we can come to that conclusion.
Yes, that's
I have
true.
one word for my wife when it comes to what Brad Zaun said. Ditto.
Ditto.
I
There
got
you
it
go.
covered,
There
don't
you
I?
go. Ditto.
I got it
Exactly.
covered.
Me too. There we go.
But see, your wife, she deserves sainthood.
And yours doesn't.
Well, Brad and I are easy to get along with.
So,
You know, we don't cause any problems.
I would agree with what was just said for my wife as well.
Okay. You have a wonderful wife. And it's nice to see that you have an ability to communicate that publicly, because there aren't so many people out there that would do that. They'd use that opportunity to try to compare Ronald Reagan. You know, I thought Reagan, I'm just like Reagan. Or
Churchill.
Yeah. So that's nice. You would choose your wife. I hope she's listening. If not, I'll put it on Facebook and she can get it later.
Thank you.
So why are you running?
You know, I think everybody's frustrated about what's going on in Washington, D.C. I can tell you I have 5 kids. And I'm very frustrated with most everybody in Washington, D.C. because they refuse to make tough decisions. I say this on the campaign trail. I will not pass this debt on to my kids or any other younger people. I think we are at a point in this country, and from the lessons that we can learn from history of what's going on in Europe, that we are just about, as a country, to go over the fiscal cliff. I think I bring...
Hold on, I don't know what that means.
Well, when China calls our notes and says no more money.
Okay.
And if you see what's going on in Greece and some of the other countries around Greece, there's writing that's going on, because the first place you're going to have to cut back is the entitlements that are, the entitlements that these people are receiving. I just don't. I want to avoid that.
That's going to be a tough one, isn't it, Brad?
Well, it is going to be tough, but we
Medicare,
can get it
Medicaid,
done.
Social Security, now Obamacare, if it doesn't get repealed, The 17-18 trillion dollars we've got in a national debt pales in comparison to the 80 to 100 trillion that is represented by the underfunded or unfunded entitlements and mandates that we have. Now that's a tough one, because anytime you start talking about cutting back something that they're entitled to, you're going to raise all sorts of ruckus.
We solve this problem two ways. One is we look at the spending side of our budget. The spending side, to me, there's three non-negotiables, and that is the support systems for our elderly, support systems for our veterans, and support systems for people that are disabled. Okay. With that said, you brought up another thing about Social Security and Medicare. Medicare obviously is on a faster track to be problematic for all the people that are receiving that. But what we've got to do is we've got to have a plan and put everything on the table. Not a lot different than what I did when I was mayor. What we did is we prioritized the services that were delivered, and we went in there and we started cutting, but more, and become more efficient. There's fraud and waste everywhere. We could start there, but we have got too much corporate welfare. We're giving too much of our hard-earned money away to countries that hate us. We need to look at the defense budget in regards to some of the foreign military bases, but we need a strong defense. I'm not advocating to cut the defense, but we need to look at the fraud and waste that's going on there as well. Social Security, if anybody is near Social Security, their promises are going to be fulfilled in Brad Zaun's plan. What we got to do is we have to have a conversation in a bipartisan way with the younger people. They did this in 1982 and had the conversation about reforms in Social Security. We've got to have a conversation about and get some people together to see what their investments are going to look like. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that when Social Security was started, 40-to-1 was the ratio of people paying into the system. Right now, it's 3-to-1.
Well, the average person didn't live to be 65, and now, and if they did, they didn't live much past it. We're 3-to-1. We're soon to be 2-to-1.
All right, put your headphones on for just a second. Frank, the voice, has a question for Brad Zaun. Frank, go ahead. You're live on 99.3 KTIA.
Thanks, Mac. Brad, two brief questions. One, how do you feel about term limits? And the second question is there any way to defund Obamacare without shutting down the government? Now, this, I suppose, all hinges on how they do in the Senate this fall. Mm-hmm. But how do you feel on those two issues?
Well,
thanks, Frank.
Yeah, Frank, I have a term limit bill that I filed the first year that I was in the state Senate, which limited you to being there for 12 years. You pick the number, Frank. I don't care, 8 years or 10 years or whatever that is. The system's broken right now, and there needs to be a term limit bill because there's too many people making decisions based on re-election and making a career out of this. Mm-hmm. Obamacare. What we need to do there, you hit the nail on the head. It really depends on, that's why this Senate election is so important, that if we could get, control of the Senate, we could do some things in regards to that. But you're not going to get the president probably to sign a repeal bill because it's his signature legislation. But I've been told that there's 17 incumbent Democrat senators that are running from Obamacare. I think we probably all agree that the rollout was a disaster, and really the whole bill was a disaster. What we need to do is, what we could do is we could send a bill to repeal Obamacare. He'll veto it, send it back, and then, of course, hopefully we can muster up the 2/3 majority to override his veto. If that doesn't happen, what we need to do is we need to sit down in a bipartisan way, and we need to break into pieces healthcare reforms, such as being able to buy across state lines, which I sponsored a bill in the state legislature, being able to do some liability reform as well, and then the list goes on. We probably all agree on that. But what the big mistake was, that this is such a monstrous bill that no one read. I think what we need to do is I think we could come together in a bipartisan way and agree to certain areas we need to fix.
Real quick, Brad, tax reform, are you a fair tax or a flat tax guy?
Well, anything that'll do with shutting down the IRS is what I'm supporting. I don't think that the fair tax plan is a perfect plan. The flat tax is something that is, being talked about as well. I want to get to the point where we shut down the IRS.
Well, that would be a national sales tax, the fair tax, where 18, 19, 20% of the goods and services that are sold in this country, not a VAT tax, but a fair tax, a national sales tax, would take the necessity for the IRS clear out.
Yep.
A flat tax would cut them back, but it wouldn't eliminate them.
Well, there's a lot of different proposals out there, but to tell you, we didn't talk about what else we need to do to get our budget in order. One is we've got to grow our economy, and we've got to look.
A better tax system would help grow our economy.
All right, I got to stop you, and you need to take off here, right? So you're going over to Channel 8. Watch Brad and his opponents tonight, 6:30 to 8 o'clock on Channel 8. It is the Republican debate for Congress. Brad, good luck. I hope to see you after next Tuesday as our candidate. Tom and I will be back in just a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
At 10 minutes for the top Salem Radio Network news, and then Pastor Michael Mudloff, True Blue from Westkirk Presbyterian Church, and Michael and his son Micah, who is in military school, will be my special guest this Friday on The View from a Pew. And here's what's interesting. Pastor Mudloff is a 5-point Calvinist. He is tulip all the way home. His son, who is, I think, 17, is not. And so the two of them have very interesting conversations when we just let them go and let them talk. And that's what we're going to do this Friday, 3 o'clock, right here on The View from a Pew. It should be very, very interesting. Because my guess is Micah knows as much about Calvinism as his father does, or pretty close, certainly more than I do. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. That's coming up this Friday at 3 o'clock here on The View from a Pew. All right, so Monty Shaw, Brad Zaun,
yes,
Matt Schultz,
yes, Bob Kramer,
and I think I said 5, and I think there's only 4.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a 5th, and I think it's David
Young.
David Young, and
Okay.
David's a good guy too. He doesn't get talked about as much. He was Grassley's chief of staff for some years, and he came down, and he and I enjoyed a cigar down at the club once.
Okay.
He and I just one-on-one. He wanted to visit with me, and so in fact, so did Matt Schultz. And to his credit, even though Matt is a Mormon and doesn't smoke or drink, he sat in the club for a better part of an hour. I put my cigar out but he wanted to visit, and there's some good people, and that's why I haven't come out and officially endorsed anybody. But I've known Brad for years, and I'm like you. I'm hoping that in a few weeks we can get him back on the show. As now Stacey Apple is just way too far to the left. I don't think if she's properly defined, she's going to suit well with that district. And I was glad to have Brad come on and talk about. Of course, we got to talk to him for hours. We had, no shortage of material, just shortage of time.
No, I wanted to hear more about the budget stuff because, and you're a money guy. Help me understand this. Why would China call our notes?
All right, now, a lot of people talk about China, in my judgment, too much. They have not increased their debt holdings. It's under $1 trillion to this country for many years. They've held it relatively steady. They're not increasing it, and there's no incentive for them at this point to call the notes. Now, I think there's some other issues here that involve China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, and the petrodollar, as it's referred to, which was an arrangement that came up under Nixon. And Kissinger negotiated with Saudi Arabia. And the only way Saudi Arabia and their other Arab oil people would accept payment for their oil was with the U.S. dollar. And so even though the Bretton Woods, I'm going a little deep into the weeds here, but Bretton Woods in 1944 established the U.S. dollar as the international reserve currency because it was fully transferable with gold.
Okay.
Nixon slammed the gold window in 1971, but at the same point in his administration, they worked out a parallel type of an agreement that kept the U.S. dollar at a central focus for worldwide trade. Saudi Arabia has now been so upset with the Obama administration, quite frankly, because of their inaction on Syria. They're taking it easy on Iran, mortal enemies of Saudi Arabia. They negotiate a drone contract of significant proportion with China. Russia's reached out to China. The three of them together in the years to come can unseat the U.S. dollar as the international reserve currency and put something else in there. And I don't think we're going to have much choice eventually to face the fact that we're going to have to make it without that kind of propping up of our dollar, because the biggest deal, the biggest buyer of our debt instruments out of the Treasury has been the Federal Reserve, and that's been the way for many years. The quantitative easing that you've heard about has put like $3 trillion of our debt into our reserve at the Federal Reserve. It is growing, even though they're tapering, it continues to grow. And the talk about China and then our debt over there, in all deference to Brad, is not, in my judgment, the big issue here. I don't think that's the danger.
The issue would be that the United States dollar would not be the world's
eventually the decline of the petrodollar, I think, is going to be something we have to deal with, and the debt that we are hitting into our own, the relationship between the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. Now, Ben Bernanke was the chair. He succeeded Greenspan, and Greenspan hit on the idea that we could continue to expand the economy, to have debt, to buy our own debt, to do these types of things without consequence. I should have known better. That came around with the real estate collapse and the crash of 2008. Bernanke, I think, did a little bit better job of management. Now we've got Janet Yellen in there as the Federal Reserve Chair, and they are trying to taper off of this quantitative easing. But in essence, they have been buying tens of billions of dollars of our debt notes every month for years now. And this, in large part, is what propped up the stock market. The stock market is the only thing that has really boomed. If you look at the economy in most measurements, Mac, the employment in this situation in our country has not improved.
No, it hasn't.
The incomes haven't. The only thing that's really boomed, and it's because of quantitative easing, is the stock market.
Now,
and people look at that and say, well, look how great we're doing. No, that's one segment that has been buoyed by the quantitative easing.
It seems that the real estate market's getting better.
It finally does seem, but you see, we've got interest rates at almost zero.
Right.
And the Federal Reserve has had this policy, going back to Greenspan, where they keep the interest rates at an unreasonably low level. And this eventually creates bubbles. If we had more demand in this economy, we would see more evidence of inflation and bubbles. The only reason we haven't is because they've been fighting the deflation that has been apparent. If you pull the sheets back and look at it, they've been fighting deflation, and therefore the inflation and the bubbles haven't been there yet. They will eventually get there, and unfair, artificially low interest rates over an extended period of time have consequences.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question like I'm 6 years old, because there's a lot of people out there that I don't think understand, and we're just about a minute left.
Mm-hmm.
If we owe somebody $1 trillion, why don't we just print up $1 trillion?
Well, and that's what we're doing. That's the only way we have to come out of this, is to continue to inflate and destroy our own economy, because we don't have the if we have more people like Brad Zaun, who had the backbone to say, no, we're not going to continue to spend money we do not have. We're going to have a balanced budget, and we're going to eventually even repay the debts that we have out there. You wouldn't have this problem. But then you've got the hue and cry from all of the people that have come to depend on these entitlements, where the doubling of the food stamps and all of the programs that are taken for granted are going to be in there with pitchforks, and they're saying, we've got to have our money. And then you got an issue.
And then you'll have riots.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all those things need to be addressed. Not that you have to cut them off, but you got to start getting them under control, because they're going to swallow up our whole economy.
All right, Tom will be back next Tuesday. That will be primary day. Make sure you write it down that you vote that day. It's important. No matter who you vote for, please vote for a conservative. We got to get this country back on track, and the only way we're going to do it is two ways. Vote for a conservative, and of course, as always, pray.